Welcome, everyone. We're glad to have you join us for today's Town Hall for International Students. My name is Gabe Javier, and I serve as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and I'll be moderating today's panel and sharing your questions with our panelists. I want to start by acknowledging how challenging this time has been for you to be confronting the hardship of the COVID-19 pandemic alongside federal guidance that has been confusing and continues to change. We want you to know that we value you and the many contributions you bring to UW-Madison. We're here to support you, and we're advocating for you in the spaces where we have influence. Our panelists today are here to answer your questions about federal guidance for international students, enrollment, and course schedules. We know that you have questions beyond this that we won't be able to address in this hour. So we encourage you to join us for our next town hall. You can also visit our Smart Restart or International Student Services websites for up-to-date information on a wide range of topics. Tonight we'll start with an introduction of our panelists, followed by a presentation with answers to some of your top questions we're hearing, and then invite you to submit your questions in the chat window. We will answer as many questions as we can. I want to let you know that this presentation is also being recorded as well as captioned. That link listed in the description window under the video and on the YouTube page. Our panelists today are Malia Q, Academic Services and Admissions Coordinator with the Graduate School, Katie Dunnigan, Assistant Director of International Recruitment with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, Ren Singer, Associate Vice Provost with the Office of Undergraduate Advising, and Sam McCabe, Interim Assistant Dean and Director of International Student Services, who will start the presentation.
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction, Gabe, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening or this morning, wherever you are joining us in the world. I do want to get started today by doing a brief overview of some of the key immigration documents so that you can follow along on some of the flowcharts that we have created at ISS to help explain in clear terms what we understand about the current federal guidance. And my colleagues and fellow panelists here will also walk you through some of the course enrollment and admissions processes that might apply to you if you're a new student or a continuing student with us. The first document that I would like to review with you all is called the Form I-20. The Form I-20 is a certificate of eligibility for F1 student visa status. The majority of our students come here on F1 visas. So the Form I-20, what's important to read here, and if you have your I-20 with you at home, I encourage you to take it out so that you can follow along. At the very top, you are going to see a form document issue reason. It is either going to say initial attendance, if you're a new student, transfer pending, if you transferred your CVIS record to UW-Madison to begin your program with us at UW-Madison, or a continued attendance. Those are the three most common types, and those are the ones that we'll review tonight. If you have a change of level I-20, you can follow along with the continued students. And if you have a change of status I-20, you can follow along with the initial students. However, ISS would prefer to advise you on a case-by-case basis for change of status. The next very important piece on the I-20 is the program start date. That's circled there in the middle. If you're a new student for fall 2020, your program start date should say September 2nd, 2020. That's the start date of our courses for this fall semester. If you have a program start date before fall 2020, so before September 2nd, 2020, you are most likely a continuing student. There have been several questions about the Form I-20. Do I need the original or is an electronic copy okay? We do have clarification from the federal government that an electronic copy of your Form I-20 is okay. That document can be digitally signed by a designated school official at UW-Madison. We recommend that you print that copy of the document and you sign and date in blue ink. And in the remarks section, our F1 students are not required to have a notation in the remarks that you are enrolled in in-person credits. That guidance from earlier in the month of July has been rescinded, and so that is no longer necessary. The equivalent of a Form I-20 for J1 students is called a Form DS 2019. We'll see this on the next slide. This is your certificate of eligibility for J1 student status. Similarly, you will have a form issue reason. Most of our J1 students are going to be continuing students this semester. We have very few new incoming J1 students because the guidance is slightly different for our new J1 students. The program start date is circled there on the far left side. So if you have a program start date of September 2nd, 2020, that's a fall 2020 start date. You can follow along with our initial status student flowchart that I will present. And if you have a program start date before fall 2020, you would be a continuing student. And so you can follow along on the continuing student flowchart with me in the coming slides. The biggest difference with a DS 2019 between the I-20 is that electronic copies of the DS 2019 are not acceptable for visa interviews or entry into the US. So we will still have to mail you that physical document. There will be no remarks on the DS 2019 about in-person instruction either. That is not a requirement. And similarly to the Form I-20, you will need to print this document, or if you're getting the hard copy from International Student Services at UW-Madison, you will need to sign and date in blue ink at the bottom of your DS 2019. The last document that I want to review with you is the actual visa stamp that would be in your passport. So the visa stamp for continuing students, unless you're from Canada or Bermuda, you would have an F1 visa stamp or a J1 visa stamp in your passport. And if you're a new student, you may have recently gotten one as the US consulates begin to open, or you may have an upcoming visa interview and appointment where hopefully at the end, you will have a visa stamp that looks very similar to this. You will need to make sure that the visa type or classification is an F1 or J1, or if you have dependents, that your dependents have an F2 or J2 visa type. The number of entries, if it says M, that means multiple. Use it as many times as you can or would like to while that visa is still valid. And the expiration date is also circled there. So as long as that is still valid, then you can continue to use that visa. It is very important to remember that the F1 or J1 visa stamp is your certificate of eligibility to knock on the door to enter the US. This document can expire while you're inside the US. So for our continuing students, if you're still here and your visa has expired, but your I-20 or your DS 2019 are still valid, you're okay. You don't need to travel. You don't need to travel to renew that visa right now. And there is no visa renewal process from within the US, so there is no need to renew that document at this time. For our new students, you will need to have a valid visa in order to enter the US. You will need that along with your Form I-20 or DS 2019. As well as proof of enrollment, your admission letter if you're a new student, and proof of your CVIS I-901 fee payment. This information is all on the ISS website for recommended and required travel documents. All right, so now that we know how to read the various immigration documents, I'm going to walk you through, as a continuing student, what your enrollment options are to be able to maintain your valid F1 or J1 student immigration status for fall 2020. I do want to remind everyone on the call that UW-Madison has announced that we will be a hybrid instruction institution. That is a mix of in-person and remote course offerings. So for our continuing students, again, follow along on your I-20 and ask yourself, are you currently in the US? If the answer is yes, great. Our advice to you is to enroll full-time. There is no requirement that you take an in-person course for fall semester as a continuing student. You can maintain your valid F1 or J1 status while inside or outside the US as long as you enroll full-time. The benefit to this is that you maintain benefits such as your employment authorization eligibility, so curricular practical training or CPT if you're looking for that summer internship, and optional practical training or OPT if you're nearing the end of your degree program and looking for that post degree completion employment authorization. If you're currently outside the US as a continuing student, you can still enroll full-time. You can enroll full-time in your I'm sorry, could we go back to the previous slide real quick? Thank you. You can still enroll full-time and maintain that status. I encourage you to enroll full-time in remote or online credits, and you can work with your academic advisor to select courses that are required or recommended for your degree program so that you are still progressing in your degree program. If you don't find suitable options for online or remote learning, or you might have an internet connection or some other connectivity issues that are just not conducive to your fall 2020 enrollment and degree progression. And that's okay. We do understand that this is a tough semester and that every student is facing a different situation in their remote learning. You do have the option to take a gap semester. First, talk to your academic advisor about this option. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to keep your immigration record active during that time, but we will do everything we can to work with you and liaise with the federal government for spring 2021 so that your status can be reactivated and you can continue your degree program with us in spring 2021 or later. If you're not currently in the US, you are going to need a valid F1 visa or J1 visa in order to re-enter the US for fall 2020. Also, for our continuing students, as I mentioned, there is no in-person enrollment requirement. You can enroll in completely 100% online courses or remote courses and maintain that F1 visa status. I want to move now to our new students. So with our new students, and this would be on the next slide, please. Our new students are a little bit different. New students, most of you are going to be outside of the US right now because it's too early for you to enter the US. You can only enter the US up to 30 days before your program start date on your I-20 or your DS 2019. So for new students, if you are currently in the US, then you're most likely a transfer student or you transferred your CVIS record to us. And so for international student services purposes, you're a transfer student. We recommend that you look at your course enrollment. You can remain enrolled in only online courses. However, if you're currently outside the US, you must enroll in at least one in-person credit hour. This would be a face-to-face course. For initial status students to be eligible for an F1 visa and to be eligible to enter the US, there is that requirement that you have a physical presence on our campus at UW-Madison. And so minimum one in-person credit is all we're looking for. And that's all that the US consulate should be looking for, and that is all that Customs and Border Protection should be looking for when you seek your F1 or J1 visa and when you seek entry into the US. As soon as you enter the US, or if you're already here, you're going to have a couple of requirements. These are requirements for all new international students. You are going to need to complete your international student check-in. This is with International Student Services, as well as your international student orientation. This is also with International Student Services. Both of these requirements can be completed in your Teradata portal. You will begin to receive some notifications in mid-August with instructions on how to best access this information in your Teradata portal. For those students who are outside the US and planning travel, whether you have a valid F1 visa or you have a visa interview coming up, it's very, very important that you continue to monitor the global travel advisories. You'll see that on this flow chart, which is also linked on our website. If you're still unsure, I definitely recommend that you check with your airline so that you are aware of all of the global travel advisories so that you can make any last minute needed changes to your travel plans. I now want to turn it over to my colleague, Katie, over in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment, because we know for some of our new students who are facing some challenges in getting their visa appointments or entering into the US, that you might now be faced with the big question of, what do I do? Do I enroll for fall, even if I can't come? Or do I look at coming and becoming a global badger at UW-Madison for spring 2021. Katie, can you walk us through what that process looks like a little bit for our new undergraduate students and our re-entry undergraduate students, please?
Sure, thank you so much, Sam. First, I would like to start off by saying we've had the opportunity in our office to get to know all of our brand new undergraduate students through their application essays, and have worked hard with your counselors and acknowledged that this has been a very trying time on all of you and are respective of your individual experiences. So if we could pull the slide up, I'll talk a little bit about what your options would be if you're still possibly unsure about whether or not you can start as an in-person badger or a virtual badger. Next slide, please. So again, just to go over the full-time enrollment, it will be dependent on your level. Undergraduate students who I typically work with have a minimum of at least 12 credits. But you can see here, again, depending on your level that you're entering, you will have different minimum enrollment requirements. Next slide, please. All right, so as I said before, we would love to welcome you on campus or virtual, where you can study from the comfort of your own home, but are fully aware that there are a number of limitations that you're facing, potentially internet access issues, technology limitations, an inability to have a visa appointment in your respective consulate. And so you might be wondering what your next steps are. If you cannot physically come to our campus or have challenges in taking remote coursework, you do have an option to defer your enrollment. If you do decide to defer your enrollment, you will be giving up your space in this incoming fall class and moving to either spring or fall 2021. There is a bit of a process involved with requesting a deferred enrollment. I provided the website here, but you would go onto our admissions website and search for deferred enrollment. You will need to go through your student center to fill out the request form, and it will be evaluated in our office by our admissions staff. I will point out that the formalized deadline has passed, but due to the circumstances around COVID-19, we are reviewing requests on an individual basis, again, wanting to be respectful of each individual student's challenges that they're facing in the upcoming year. One important point that I do want to hit home is that students who are approved for deferred enrollment are not permitted to take university level coursework at any other campus. So students will often request a deferred enrollment and then let us know that they will be taking an online course for college level credit or a university level course in their home country. So I just want to reiterate that the idea of deferring your enrollment is that you still very much want to be a Badger and are willing to sort of take a little bit of time off before you can join us. You can use that time to prepare to transition to the United States or to campus. That can include doing further research on your potential major, working with your academic advisor, keeping us updated on any changes that we might need to be aware of, purchasing a winter jacket because you could be joining us in January, as well as, brushing up on your English skills or anything else that you might need to do during that time, including interviewing for your visa. So again, if you do have any questions or concerns, please do reach out to the admissions office. We will be providing our contact information at the end of the presentation. And I think next will be Malia.
Thank you, Katie. I appreciate it. So for new graduate students, newly admitted graduate students, the question we've been seeing the most often is, can I defer my admission to spring, summer, or fall 2021? And you do have a couple of options. And the first thing we want to make sure that you do is work with your specific program to determine the best option for you. So students can defer their admission to a subsequent semester, and you would want to work with your program to determine if it would be the immediately following semester. If you were admitted for fall 2020, would it be spring 2021? Or if it would be to defer later than that. And then students can also enroll remotely from outside the US and then begin their on-campus enrollment again in a subsequent semester. And in both of those situations, we would definitely say work with your program. And then if you plan to enroll remotely, work with your program and the graduate school to make sure that you get your updated I-20 with new start dates. And you can find program contact information as well as our contact information and more at the link we've listed below. And I think we're back to Sam.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie and Malia, for walking our new students through what that deferral process looks like if remote learning from their home country is not a viable option for fall 2020. I do want to review quickly for those of you who are able to join us for fall 2020, some travel reminders for you to keep in mind so that you can join us safely here on campus in Madison by September 2nd, when our courses will begin for the fall semester. As I mentioned earlier, please always frequently check the global travel advisories. This is a very fluid situation here in the US and worldwide, and so it is always in your best interest to monitor those global travel advisories and be ready to make changes to your travel plans as necessary. We highly recommend that you follow the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, traveler guidelines, including self-quarantine and monitoring guidelines. And to follow the CDC guidelines, we do recommend that you attempt to arrive in Madison at least 2 weeks prior to the start date of classes. So please try to arrive by August 17th if you are joining us from outside the US, so that you can self-monitor and make sure that you are going to start out your fall semester healthy and strong with us and protecting the health, safety, and well-being of our Madison and our Badger communities. So while you're preparing to travel, you may have noticed starting last week that there are some changes to your course schedules in your course search and enroll app. I'm going to hand it over to Ren Singer to talk through a little bit about how we can read our course schedules and what to do if you need advice or need to make any changes. So Ren, can you please walk us through how to read our course schedules?
Of course, Sam, thank you. And I'm glad to be here tonight, and welcome to all of you. For new undergraduates who have not yet attended SOAR, so any new freshmen or transfer students who have not yet attended SOAR, everything I'm talking about now, you will learn during your SOAR advising experience. So there's nothing you need to do yet if you haven't attended SOAR. and you are a new freshman or transfer student. The slide that will come up here in a minute is referring to students, undergrads and graduate students who have already enrolled in their fall courses. And so some of you, many of you, enrolled in your courses back in the spring. And just last week, we asked you all to go back into the Course Search and Enroll app, which you can visit at the website in the first line of the slide, to look at your fall course schedule. And you need to do that because we've made a lot of changes to the modality, which by that we mean, is the course taught face-to-face? Is it taught online, or is it a mix of the two? We've made changes to the modality, and in some cases made changes to the day, time, and location of each of your courses. We needed to do this because social distancing guidelines require us to have a 6-foot radius around each student in an in-person class, and that greatly reduces the number of seats we have in in-person classes, and therefore a lot of courses are online, which will work really well for a lot of you in your situations. So you need to go into your Course Search and Enroll app and review your fall schedule to make sure that you're very aware of the modality, day, time, and location of each of the courses that you're enrolled in for fall. Now, some of you may want to or need to make changes to that schedule in order to match with where you are, whether you're able to come to Madison, whether you need to have an in-person course or you can't have in-person courses because you're in another country. And you should go right into your Course Search and Enroll app and make the changes on your own. It's perfectly fine to do that. Those of you who are continuing students know how to do that. You've done that before. And we have new functions in the Course Search and Enroll app, which will allow you to search for courses that are either online or in person or a mix. So you can look for exactly what you need. So you're welcome to do that on your own. If you run into any challenges, this is when we really want you to hear from you. We really want you to contact your academic advisor right away if you need a particular course in a particular mode and you're not able to get it. So if you're in another country and you need all your courses remote, and the one course that you need to make progress in your degree or to graduate is only available in person at UW-Madison, we need to know about that so we can help you work that out. So please contact your academic advisors right away with any kind of challenges that you're having in putting together a schedule that meets the needs that you have right now for the location that you're in and the courses that you need to enroll in. We're here to help you. We know how challenging the circumstances are for all of you, and we really want to make sure that we help you individually with those kind of concerns. Thank you. Back to you, Sam, or Gabe.
Sam, I think you're going to talk a little bit about some key context and dates.
Yeah, so one of actually the number one date that students really need to keep in mind is that classes do start on September 2nd. And so the federal government agencies, such as Customs and Border Protection, as well as the U.S. State Department, for new students are expecting you to be on campus by September 2nd. 2020. For continuing students, that's the same. The start date of our semester is reported in your CVIS record, and so you may be questioned if you are trying to cross the border, a land border, or enter through an air or seaport after September 2nd, why you're arriving late. So that is the number one date to keep in mind. But as I mentioned earlier, we do recommend that you arrive in the US the week of August 17th, so that you have time to self-monitor and quarantine if you are coming from an area that has a high rate of COVID-19 cases currently. Thank you for that, Gabe. Very important.
Great, thank you so much. So now we'll take some of the questions being posted. So the first question is for Malia. So are graduate students with TA, RA, or PA assistantships allowed to hold those appointments to get tuition remission and get paid for their work from their home country?
So right now, we know that telecommuting could be a possibility. It's definitely something that you'll want to, again, work with your program on. Each HR department has their own guidelines. So we definitely suggest contacting your faculty advisor and the graduate coordinator in your program, and they will connect you with HR to see what the possibilities are for you.
Great, thank you. So there was a question about when is the last day that we can apply for deferred enrollment? Malia, can you comment on that on the graduate side, and then Katie on the undergraduate side?
Sure. So we say reach out to your program. Again, program is kind of my buzzword for the evening. So reach out to your program as soon as you can, as soon as you know that you're going to be deferring, and they will be sending us those deferrals in the middle of August. So we don't have a set date currently, but try to do it as soon as you know, and then keep your program and us in the graduate school admissions office in the loop to let us know that you're going to be deferring your admission.
Much like Malia in the graduate school, we don't have a firm set deadline, but we would recommend that students reach out to us sooner rather than later. As I said, it is a multi-step process. And so the closer that you get to the start of the term, the more involved the process could be, because we do need to evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. So if it is something that you are seriously considering, I would advise you to reach out to our office as soon as possible, because you still need to register for courses and possibly take placement tests and do some other things in the event that you opt to not defer your enrollment.
Thank you. There was a question about research classes. So Malia, do research classes count as in-person?
They count as in-person as long as they're listed as in-person in Course Search and Enroll. And if you're unable to see that or you're not positive, then again, reach out to your grad coordinator who can help you interpret that. But yes, research credits are counted as in-person as long as they are listed that way in Course Search and Enroll.
Great, so check the Course Search and Enroll. Thank you.
Definitely.
Sam, you mentioned the important date of September 2nd. There's a question that if I couldn't enter the US by September 2nd, could I enter the US later during the fall semester?
Yeah, this is a common question that we get every semester, COVID-19 or not. So this semester is a little bit different though. And so we really do encourage every student to arrive by September 2nd. If you can't, I encourage you to reach out to the International Student Services Office. New students, there is probably not going to be much of a grace in terms of being able to arrive late. For our continuing students, I would say it definitely depends on course enrollment and permission from your instructors. If you're enrolled completely in remote courses or online courses, you may not have that immediate physical presence requirement on campus, but you also may be risking your ability, your eligibility to enter the US. As I mentioned before, this is a very fluid situation, and as global travel advisories change, there may be then the inability for you to enter the US. Something else that's really important to keep in mind is International Student Services, starting on September 2nd, we have 30 days to touch every single F1 and J1 record of every single international student we have, both continuing and new. Our continuing students who will be outside the US taking remote courses will need to have a new I-20 issued to them, noting that they will be enrolled full-time and remain outside the US for the fall semester due to COVID-19. Our new students, we to make sure and register your CVIS record by reporting that you have physically reported to our campus, you have checked in with the International Student Services Office. Again, that check-in process is going to be done virtually through your Teradata portal. And also that you are enrolled in an in-person class, which face-to-face in-person class would require you to be here on campus. And so we begin that process on September 2nd. So if you're not able to arrive by that date, it may then cause some issues later on in terms of getting your your F1 CVIS record or J1 CVIS record registered properly, as well as your ability to enter the US. So please do contact ISS if you will not be able to enter the US by September 2nd. And if you have not secured your visa by then, it would be my recommendation that you enroll in remote courses for the fall semester and attempt to join us in person for spring 2021.
Great. Thank you, Sam. I just want to offer a quick update. We're about halfway through our time together, and thank you all so much for the questions this evening, wherever you are in the world. We're answering questions as quickly as we can, both with our panel and in the chat. So the next question, if new students can't get a visa by September 2nd, but have to enroll full-time online courses in their home countries, is there a consideration about partnering with universities in their home countries? Katie, can you speak to that?
Sure, yes. I can say that we have had this question posed to our office directly. And at the present time, we do not have any plans to partner with other institutions for coursework in country. There are some additional concerns with transferability of coursework. And if it would kind of equate to a one-to-one UW-Madison course. And so we would want to make sure that students are not extending their time to degree, if at all avoidable.
Great, thank you. And Katie, if I could stay with you for a minute, a question about deferment. If I choose to defer, can I apply for another deferral if I still cannot come in the spring due to COVID or other issues?
Sure, I think that that's something that we would explore on a case-by-case basis. Certainly we have students who defer for a semester or up to a year for a variety of different reasons, including required military service. So given the circumstances of COVID and it being a very fluid situation, I think that's something that we would probably evaluate should plans change for spring.
Great. Amelia, I'm wondering if you can address the same question from the graduate side.
Sure. We're about the same as Katie said, except that as long as you work with your program and your program fully supports you moving to a subsequent semester, we're happy to do that as well. So again, like I keep saying, work with your program, and then your program will let us know if they would like to defer your admission or enrollment to a subsequent semester.
Thank you very much. Our next question is about summer internship work authorizations. Sam, I'm wondering, can a new student who is enrolled fully online for fall qualify for summer internship work authorizations?
That's a really wonderful question. And the current federal guidance for our new students who are not able to come to the US, they would enroll full-time remotely from home country or outside the US. Unfortunately, you would not be meeting the 1-year full-time enrollment eligibility requirement. And I know this sounds weird because you're thinking, I am enrolled full-time for fall semester. Unfortunately, without entering the US, you're not establishing that F1 visa status. And so part of that eligibility requirement, that 1 year of full-time enrollment requirement for curricular practical training, or CPT, or optional practical training, or what we refer to as OPT, that's not going to count if you're not in the US and you're not in a valid status that allows you to enroll full-time. For our continuing students, that's a little bit different because your record is already active and we can continue to keep it that way per federal guidance. For new students, that is unfortunately not the case unless you are a transfer pending student who is currently here in the US and you have no intention to leave the US for fall semester. We can register your record and you can begin to meet that, that 1 year of full-time enrollment requirement. I'd like to ask a little bit of a follow-up question to my colleague Ren. With this question, some students might be looking to make some course changes to their schedule. And so can you talk a little bit about that, Ren, just revisiting what you had presented to us earlier, how students can look at their enrollment and search for an in-person course that might meet some of those degree requirements?
Absolutely, thank you, Sam. Students, there is functionality in Course Search and Enroll app now that allows you to search for courses in a particular modality. And we've added in the modalities that we have now, including in-person, hybrid, which means a course has some online components and some in-person components, and then a course that's fully online or remote. And so you can go into your Course Search and Enroll app and do a search that includes the modality. You can also, in the search field, select the degree requirements that you want the course to meet, and then the courses that are available will come up for you to enroll in. And again, as I said during the introduction, if you find that you're running into a situation where courses that you need in a particular modality are not available to you, that's when we need to hear from you, and you need to reach out to your advisor so that we can help you work through that. We don't want any of you to get stuck in a situation where you're not able to do what you need to do because the courses you need are not available.
Great. Thank you very much, Red, for that. I have a question about new I-20 process issues. Malia, who does a new student already in the US contact for transfer or new I-20 process issues?
So if you're a graduate student, we would have you contact admissions at grad.wisc.edu, our email address. I'll repeat that, admissions at grad.wisc.edu, and let us know what issues you're having, if they're Teradata issues or if it's just you don't think you can arrive on time, whatever it is. And we will make sure that that email gets to where it needs to go, to the person who's processing your I-20.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Sam to repeat a really important point that she made earlier about being here in the fall. So Sam, what should I do if I can't get to the UW in the fall, but I'm required to take one credit in person? I know you addressed this once, but I think it's really important.
Absolutely, because we are here to support you to make sure that you progress in your degree program. And so what I would recommend that you do in that case is that you reach out to your academic advisor. If you're a graduate student, also contact your graduate program coordinator and your faculty advisor to see if there are any alternative courses for you to enroll in that are offered remotely or online that would still count towards your degree program. Ren, do you have anything more to add on that question in terms of how students might still be able to progress in their degree program if there is that hard and fast requirement for a course that is only seeming to be offered in person?
Yeah, that, as you just said, Sam, and I want to reinforce it again, the importance of contacting your advisor in situations like that. We need to work with students one-on-one in those cases to really understand what's happening, understand what the requirement is, and then oftentimes the academic advisors will move that up a level to the academic dean's offices, and they will work with you to figure out how to continue to progress in that situation. We really don't want people to get stuck and not be able to make degree progress because of an issue with modality in relation to where you are physically or where you need to be. And we won't know if that's happening to you unless you reach out and tell your advisor and explain the story so that we can begin to work with you right away.
Thank you very much, and thanks for walking through that again, Sam. So the next question is, do I need to have my I-20 updated if I'm a new student and originally thought I could come to the US physically, but now want to take full online coursework in my home country? Katie, can you take that one?
Sure, thanks, Gabe. We would definitely recommend that you reach out to us if we were the office that issued your I-20. We do have 2 DSOs in undergraduate admissions who are tracking all of the cases that we currently have from incoming students. So we would recommend that you reach out to us. The email again will be provided on a slide towards the end to let us know of your status change, because we will need to defer your start date on your I-20.
Thank you. Sam, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add, I think Katie really hit the point home that there is a designated school official, or a DSO, that would have issued your initial attendance I-20. And so that if you're a new undergraduate student or a reentry undergraduate student, that I-20 was issued to you by the Office of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment. And so I recommend reaching out to that designated school official so that they can defer that I-20 program start date to spring 2021 or later, when you would then plan to join us in person here on campus. If you're a graduate student, a new graduate student, or a reentry graduate student, then your I-20 would have been issued to you by a designated school official in the graduate admissions office. And so again, you'll see the name of the person who signed that document and issued that document to you, and they can assist you to defer that I-20 program start date. The last group of students that we do have would be our special students. So you might be through the Visiting International Student Program or through one of our special capstone programs. Your I-20 would have been issued to you by our Division of Continuing Studies. And so again, the designated school official name would be on page 1 of that I-20, and you can contact the person who issued that I-20 so that your I-20 program start date can be deferred to spring 2021 or later. In some cases, for our professional schools, that would be ISS that issued your document. And so you can reach out to us if you're law, vet med. We issue those documents, and we can certainly work with you and your admitting unit to confirm that you were enrolled only online, and we will defer that program start date on your I-20 and reissue that I-20 to you electronically and upload that in your Teradata portal for easy access.
Thank you. Our next question: How do incoming international PhD students study if we would need to study remotely? Do we still have the funding and tuition waiver? Malia, do you think you can tackle that one?
Yep, definitely. So I think you're all going to be surprised by my answer, but it's talk to your program. So your program will be able to let you know how you're keeping if you're able to keep the tuition waiver and receive funding. So reach out to your faculty advisor, your grad coordinator. And if you're unsure and have absolutely nowhere else to go, again, you can always email us at admissions and we'll get you to where you need to go.
Thank you. We have a question now about visa appointments. So Sam, if a student enrolled fully online for the fall semester, when would they need to schedule their visa appointment?
That is a great question. I would recommend as early as possible, especially if you're planning to join us for spring 2021. Most U.S. consulates will allow you to schedule your visa appointment or interview appointment roughly 6 months before the I-20 program start date. So you'll first need to get that new I-20. What the advantage that you would have in deferring an I-20 program start date is that you keep that same CVIS ID number. So you can still go ahead and apply, wait to get that I-20 uploaded in your Teradata portal, and then you would take that I-20 with you to your visa appointment. I know that this question can be a little bit trickier than this, than the answer that I just gave in some countries. And I'll use China as an example, where the US where China just closed one of the US consulates. We also closed a Chinese consulate here in the US. And most of our US consulates are not reopening right now in China. And so, we know that this is creating another barrier to our international student mobility and your ability to join us on campus. And we also know that any visa appointments that you might be able to schedule today may be canceled tomorrow or may be postponed. So my recommendation to you is that you continue to go to that U.S. consulate website in your local area, and that you continue to schedule those visa interviews. The first one that you can get is great. And so again, just make sure that you have all of your documentation prepared, that you are working with the designated school official at UW-Madison who issued that I-20 to you, so that you have your updated program start date on the I-20 and you are ready for that visa interview as soon as those US consulates open. So I guess the short answer to that question is as soon as possible.
Great, thank you for that advice. I just want to update folks. We have about 10 minutes left. So thank you so much for entering your questions in the chat. We'll get to as many as we can. And again, thank you for joining us. So our next question is about quarantine. The question is, will we have a place to stay for quarantine in UW-Madison? Sam, would you talk a little bit about the residence halls?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a housing expert. And so my great colleagues in housing, I'm sure can follow up and give you a much better answer than I can, but I'm going to give this one a shot. So for our undergraduate students who do live in the residence halls, so that would be our on-campus housing. And if you present symptoms or you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19, we will have isolation and quarantine space available in those residence halls. We have that space set aside, and this is part of our reopening planning. Students who live off campus, those students will need to make plans for where and how to isolate or quarantine if they are exposed to COVID-19 or test positive for COVID-19. So you may need to work with your landlord or look at what some of those self-isolation and quarantine options are for you for those students who live off campus. That would be non-UW housing.
Great, thank you. So the next question, if I am a new student and I start remote learning online in the fall in my home country, what are the steps for getting my I-20 process started for coming to campus in the spring? Katie, do you think you can tackle that one?
Sure. So if you're starting as an undergraduate student and this will be your first time attending the university, I would recommend that you visit our website, admissions.wis.edu. We have an admitted student checklist for international students that outlines the I-20 process, including entering your information into Teradata. We also use the Teradata portal along with ISS to issue those initial I-20s. Malia, do you have anything to add from the graduate perspective?
Yes, thank you, Katie. Since the graduate school is decentralized, again, we would want you to start with your program so that your program's aware you're beginning your coursework remotely. And then you will let them know and us know that you are going to be coming to campus for, say, spring 2021. And from there, we will get your I-20 updated if you currently have one, or we will send you a new initial one if you have not yet received an I-20. So, thank you.
Sam, you know, there's been a lot of really great information, and this is all very complex. So I'm wondering if you could maybe offer, like, what's one of the most important pieces of advice that you might have?
Just one, Gabe? I think, honestly, you know, what I would tell any international student, new or continuing, we completely understand that this has been a very stressful time and a very difficult decision on what to do for fall 2020. And so my biggest and best piece of advice is work with your loved ones, your family or your chosen family, and make a decision that puts your health, safety, and well-being first and foremost. We know that your academic program is incredibly important and that you've worked so hard to get to where you are. And we do not take that lightly. And as all of my colleagues here on the panel have stated tonight, we are all here to support you and to make sure that you progress in your academic program with minimal disruption. But I do want to emphasize that you are making a decision that is not going to compromise your health, your mental health, your physical health, your well-being. And so this is not going to be an easy decision on what to do for fall 2020. But I do want to let you know that not only our colleagues in International Student Services, but across campus, for any student who is here in Madison, we know that you're far from home, that you might be here alone in the US for the first time, and we are here to support you. You will have a strong support network and safety network. And for those students who remain outside the US, we are here to support you through your academic journey as well. And we want to get you to campus when it is safe to do so. And so I guess in a nutshell, my advice is please put your physical, mental, and emotional health, safety, and well-being first and foremost in any decision you make for fall semester.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. We just have a few more questions we'll try to squeeze in here, okay? So one comment was, I didn't know grad students' full enrollment status is 8 credits. My department told me that 6 credits is what PhD students with a TA-ship need to take. Is 6 credit okay, or is 8 credits a must? Malia?
Sure. So if you are a TA with an appointment of 33.3%, then you do not need to take 8 credits to be considered full-time. That's when you can take 6. So it just depends on the amount of time that your assistantship is allotted for, the percentage of time. And we have those enrollment requirements listed at our website. So please make sure if you have any questions, you go there. Otherwise, again, you can always email us at admissions@grad.wisc.edu.
Great. Thank you very much. And so a question about online classes. We know that they can happen asynchronously or synchronously. Ren, could you talk a little bit more about what that means and how that's done?
Yes, great question. This is really, really important for students that are in time zones outside of the Midwest or the time zones right around Wisconsin. An asynchronous class is one that is not offered at a specific time. It means that the instructor will likely post material that you can view and read and participate in at your own pace and at your own time. And so for students who are residing in time zones that don't work very well with the central time zone where Madison is, you may want to consider looking for courses that are taught asynchronously. A synchronous class is one that is taught at a specific time. It's kind of like an in-person class where you go to the classroom and you meet, but you go to the online classroom at a specific time, at specific days of the week, and you meet with your instructor and perhaps your other classmates kind of live in real time in the online environment. And so those courses require that you be available and able to participate in the class at the time that it is offered, which could be more difficult for some of you who are in time zones, which would mean you might have to get up in the middle of the night to do these synchronous classes. In the Course Search and Enroll app, the courses are labeled, whether they are taught at a specific time or not. And so you can look at that and make that work for you depending on where you are in the world and what would be best for your schedule and for your learning.
Great, thank you. One last question. Are new students required to show proof of in-person credits to CBPs or immigration? And what counts as proof? Sam, can you talk to this?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So yes, if you are a new student with an initial status or transfer pending I-20 issue reason or DS 2019 issue reason, you will need to show proof or be ready to show proof. Always be ready to give them proof if they ask you the question. And so at International Student Services, we have a very quick form that you can fill out in your Teradata portal. It was also in the newsletters that we sent out to our new and continuing students on Friday of last week, where you can request an enrollment certification for fall 2020. What that letter will state is how many in-person credit hours, how many remote credit hours, and how many online credit hours you are currently enrolled in. That will also state your name and your CVIS ID number, so it will match with your I-20, and you can present that letter with your I-20 and your valid F1 visa stamp, as well as your valid passport for entry into the US. So that can be used as proof, and if you need an enrollment verification letter, and most of our continuing students would be familiar with this, you can download that from your student center. And that is a letter that's certified by the registrar's office. But the International Student Services letter is actually going to differentiate in-person, remote, and online credit enrollment for you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to close out our time this evening. Lots of valuable information. Sam, can you remind us of the web address or some important web addresses we can go to if we need more information?
Yeah, first and foremost, I would say go to the Smart Restart page for UW-Madison. That is a wealth of information for all campus operations. So if you need housing information, if you need dining information, the enrollment information that Ren kindly walked us through earlier, all of that's going to be at the smartrestart.wisc.edu website. I'm also going to plug International Student Services. If you go to iss.wisc.edu, we have all of our information on our COVID FAQ page, and so that is linked there at the very top line. Please read through that information. If you don't find the answer that you're looking for there, please do reach out to us by email at iss@studentlife.wisc.edu, and we will continue to keep updating our COVID FAQ page there. There are also a couple of other email addresses here on the screen. So Katie had mentioned reaching out after going to the Office of Undergraduate Admissions and Recruitment website for the new student checklist information. If you have outstanding questions, you can go to onwisconsin@admissions.wisc.edu. For course scheduling, for course schedule advising, you can, and this is specific for undergraduate students who are seeking course schedule advising, you can go to info@advising.wisc.edu. And for our graduate students with admissions questions, you can go to, and Malia, please correct me if I get this wrong, admissions@grad.wisc.edu. Did I remember that off the top of my head? All right, I email you enough that I remembered that. Great. So those are some important email addresses and web pages to bookmark.
Great. Thank you so much to Sam and my fellow panelists. Thank you for all of us all of you who are able to join us this evening. We're looking forward to welcoming you as a Badger, both on campus and from afar this fall. We're here from you, so please reach out and take good care. Good night.